Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. He's breaking down the noise, cutting through the lies, shining light where the shadow hides. With guests in the mix and callers on cue, he's a voice for the many, not the few. Well, grab your coffee, raise that flag, stand your ground, never wave that rag. News with a backbone, voice of the free. Rick's got the...
And happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back into the program. I know it's been a minute. It's been a few minutes. I've tried to spin this thing up twice now. Well, so first things first, if it's been a minute since you've listened, there's a lot that's happened since the last time we've talked. So I lost my brother in November. We got, and of course, as kind of being the minister of the family, I did the send off and all that fun stuff. But around that same time, I also got completely sick. So I have tried, I tried once about mid-November to try to spin back up, and that's when I was sick and sick and sick and sick. And then I tried beginning of December to spin things back up, and that didn't work out either. So this is the relaunch, especially because today I had some technical issues in the first broadcast. So I see some folks that are still pushing that one out. If you would be so kind, if you're finding the stream, make sure you are pushing it out. You should make sure you're paying attention to the one that says take two. Because if anybody's trying to listen to the other one, you're just going to get the music video and a bunch of silence. Because for some reason, my board and microphone weren't talking to Restream. I had to restart everything to fix it. Which is weird because it was doing it before. Then I went live and it stopped. Anyway, I also noticed it has my webcam microphone set as default, so I got to figure out when that happened and fix that too. But anyway, we're here. We're live. Also want to give a quick update. Don't forget Friday. I don't know. I've seen people putting out different times. We usually do them at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if maybe they've changed it this time. I'll have to check with the programming director. But we are doing our Christmas production for the KLRN Radio players, and it will be The Wizard of Oz. I've been so out of it, I don't even know what my parts are yet. I'm going to have to figure that out later this week. Also, due to a scheduling conflict with the company that is putting out some of the music that our KLRN Radio house band has started to put together, I had planned on being able to announce the release of Freedom Isn't Free for public consumption and purchase today. However, because when I was half sick and dealing with a million different things, I forgot to click a button to finalize everything. I made the disturbing discovery the other yesterday that it was still sitting there pending my final approval. So that has now been scheduled, and I have a confirmation number to prove it. So it should be out around New Year's Eve. So we may or may not start playing some commercials about that. I also have another one for those of you that have been paying attention for a while that will likely come out a couple weeks later. Even though I have been dying, sort of, kind of, the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I also have a children's book that I think is going to become a series of children's books by the time I'm done. We've got the dialogue and the stories all done, the art's all done. Now I just have to put the two together, which is probably going to be the longest part. So I'm hoping to have that out also sometime mid-January, beginning of February. And then I've also got a fiction book that I have been starting to scribble some notes on. I also have a group that's wanting to reach out to help me put out some nonfiction books, which I'm going to need help with, so I may lean on them a little bit. So there's a lot of things that have been going on while you guys haven't heard from me. So it's not like I haven't been working. I've just been working on stuff that didn't require me to talk because I barely had a voice for most of the last month. You may notice it still sounds a little rough, so we're going to do everything we can to get through the full 2 hours today, minus the 16-minute technical issues because I'm on a deadline for another client. So we'll be wrapping on time, unfortunately. So it's not my fault, though. I tried. I started on time. I promise. I really did. And then I realized that you guys couldn't hear me. All right. So let's see what's going on over here because I'm going to have to see if I can, they are talking, but it looks like it actually ended already. So did I miss it? Sorry, I was trying to grab the press conference, and then I realized they were in spin-up phases earlier when I couldn't make any. Or not. So if it is, we'll be joining, and if not, we'll House Republican leaders press conference. And also trying to see if we can grab any of that or not. It looks like it is going on. So we will be joining that in just a moment. I apologize for any confusion. Problem is, why is it muted on my end over here? It's like I should be hearing. Oh wait, I know that's on my end. I think maybe not. What happened? It said it was live. What is going on? I don't think it's working well. So maybe we won't do that. I was going to do it, but I don't think it's going to let me. That's weird. Let's try again. Sorry, technical issues. So while I'm dealing with the technical issues, something else I want to talk about because everybody's having a fit about it. Look, if I were president of the United States, I wouldn't have said what Donald Trump said yesterday. That being said, also as president of the United States, I haven't been listening to these people spout this same rhetoric over and over again for years, and that eventually resulted in people trying to kill me not once but several times. So I don't know. I mean, Rob Reiner's never insulted me professionally or personally, so I can be mad about it or I cannot. I will say this, as somebody who's written articles about him, isn't like I haven't insulted him. So I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of Republicans were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that." I can, but we'll get back to that after this. So hang on.
Of some of these laws, like NEPA, Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, all of these laws are being heavily abused. So this is a really important first step, getting the SPEED Act passed to get real meaningful permitting reform. And then, of course, Dr. Miller Meeks talked about her bill, which is such an important step to lower costs in healthcare for all Americans, 100% of Americans. While Democrats only care about bailing out insurance companies and focusing on less than 10% of Americans that are in the Unaffordable Care Act, we're focused on lowering premiums for all Americans. And that's what you're going to see on the floor this week. You think about association health plans, which have been proven to give people more options to lower costs. The Choice Act, which, while everybody complains, they say, why when I watch TV commercials, I see this gecko lizard and I see the emu and I see all these other animals out there selling health, they're selling car insurance, they're selling homeowners insurance. Why aren't they selling health insurance? Well, that's because the laws at the federal level prohibit the ability for people to have choices to get people trying to offer them lower cost products for health insurance. Imagine if, for example, with Choice Act, where you can run through a health savings account, the ability where if you get your health insurance through your employer, if you're able to go find a better plan, if somebody could compete for your business and offer you a lower deductible plan with lower co-payments for your families, right now you can't go buy that product. Well, we create those options with the bill that we're bringing to the floor tomorrow, the PBM reform that Dr. Miller Meeks talked about, where you can actually have lower prescription drug costs, again, for 100% of Americans. This is something that our three committees of jurisdiction have been working on for a long time. And yet, while Democrats only want to bail out insurance companies while premiums go up, we're focused on having lower premium options, lower cost options for 100%. So another busy week where we're going to be focusing on helping families that are struggling under the weight of all the damage that President Biden did. President Trump is working to lower costs. President Trump wants to see these bills on his desk, and we're going to work to deliver here in the House. And if I don't see you between now and then, I wish you all a happy Hanukkah and happy holidays. House. Mike Johnson.
I rarely get to raise the podium, but I'm going to take the opportunity this morning. Thank you, ladies. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Dr. Miller Meeks for joining us on what is our last leadership press conference of the year. And I just want to say to all of you, press corps, thanks for being here each week and covering all of this. It's been a hugely historic week in press corps. Thanks week and covering all of this. It's been a hugely historic week and year in so many ways, and a hugely consequential Congress, and you've had a lot to cover. So we do, as everybody has said, wish you Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, and hope you get some well-deserved rest over the short holiday. Since Congress reopened following the end of the Democrat shutdown, the longest in American history, Republicans have passed, since we came back, 41 pieces of legislation, and of course, as you've heard this morning, we're set to pass even is the Lower Health Care Premiums for All Americans Act. It is aptly and appropriately named because that's exactly what it's going to do, as everybody has explained this morning. If you recall, Democrats shut the government down and kept it closed for 43 days so that Chuck Schumer could get political cover from the grassroots of his party. Remember that he had voted for the same CR just several months earlier in March. When the same vehicle came forward, he suddenly changed his tune, and that is because he caught a lot of political backlash for it. So he decided instead to shut the government down and fight. Well, everybody saw how obvious and how dangerous that gambit was. And so the Democrats tried to spin their selfish political decision to claim the whole thing was always about, quote, fighting for health care affordability. But that claim never made any sense because it ignores the very simple facts of the situation. It is the Democrats' Unaffordable Care Act that broke America's health care system, as has been recounted this morning. And it's the Democrats who've refused every good faith Republican effort to fix it along the way. Now, this is 15 years into this saga that the American people have been drugged through because the Democrats decided 15 years ago to break the system. They insisted when they passed the Unaffordable Care Act that it would reduce premiums, it would provide more choice and higher quality and all of that. And none of that ever happened. In fact, quite the opposite effect is what we have seen. All this was foreseeable, and that's why Republicans didn't support it. Premiums have skyrocketed, the quality of care has plummeted in so many places and in so many cases around the country, and fraud is absolutely rampant in the system, and it is costing everyone dearly. Yes, there is a healthcare affordability problem in America. It's a very serious problem for almost every family. But it is an indisputable fact that the Democrats caused that problem, and Republicans are the ones having to clean it up. For 15 long years, Americans have now faced skyrocketing premiums, fewer quality choices, inefficient care, and widespread fraud, waste, and abuse. Benchmark premiums on the Obamacare marketplace For every plan, listen to this, they've increased 80% overall since 2014, and they're continuing to rise. The Unaffordable Care Act marketplace has resulted in lower quality plan offerings and less consumer choices to date. Fraud is absolutely rampant. Paragon Health is one of the analyst groups, and they estimate there's over 6.4 million people who are improperly enrolled in the Obamacare exchanges. And a recent GAO study, the Government Accountability Office, found some staggering facts. It proved what we all know intuitively about the fraud that's involved in this program. They found that Obamacare's subsidy system lacks even the most basic guardrails to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. And I think that study is something that you should all dig into. It should be on the front page of every newspaper because it is shocking and alarming. Over the last 2 years, for example, the investigators at the GAO, Government Accountability Office, they did a little experiment. They in 24 different cases, they applied for Obamacare subsidies. They did it fraudulently by intent. So 24 applications with no Social Security data attached, none of the information that's necessary to actually apply, no citizenship proof attached, and income documents and all the things that are supposed to be applied and included in an application. Now, guess what? Out of the 24, 23 of them were approved. And they've been paid tens of thousands of dollars, some of them as recently as September of this year, the GAO tracking all of this fraud, wondering, hoping if anybody will ever pay any attention to it and stop it. That's not the only thing they found. The report also found that in 2023, 29,000 Social Security numbers were used by multiple persons. In 2024, 68,000 Social Security numbers used by multiple people to bilk the system, to defraud the system, and to take dollars to themselves. You had, in one case, there was over 120 individuals using the same Social Security number to get these benefits, and it was never stopped. The GAO also found that more than $94 million last year alone was sent to insurers on behalf of people who were already deceased. It's a serious problem in the system. It's why the costs are so high, and this is the system that Democrats in Congress want to extend without any reform. We just can't have that. The Washington Post summarized all this best in one simple sentence. They said, quote, "The real problem is that the Affordable Care Act was never actually affordable." That's the problem. America's healthcare system should be the envy of the world. Instead, it's the most expensive in the world, and the American people are not getting any healthier because of all this madness. A new Gallup poll released yesterday found that 70% of Americans have a negative outlook on our healthcare system for all the obvious reasons. All Americans deserve a healthcare system that puts patients first, one that meets their needs with more access, more choice, and more affordable quality care. And House Republicans have offered legislation to begin fixing what is broken and to restore integrity to our nation's healthcare system. And it's so long overdue. The Lower Healthcare Premiums for All Americans Act, which will be on the floor tomorrow, is the first big step in that regard. As has been noted about Dr. Miller Meeks and the other leaders here, it offers common sense solutions to lower premium cost for everybody, all Americans. It expands access to quality care. It provides every American with more options and flexibility to choose coverage that works for them. And it brings greater transparency to America's healthcare system. And here's how. The bill has 5 key reforms. I'll just reiterate some of this real quickly. It reduces premium costs through cost-sharing reduction payments. It's pharmacy benefit manager transparency and removes the hidden cost of prescription drugs. It allows small business owners and independent workers to form association health plans. It provides more choice for employees to customize their health care plans, and it protects small businesses from costly regulatory overreach. According to the latest CBO projection, Republicans' cost-sharing reduction payments, just that provision alone, would reduce premiums by at least 11% and will save taxpayers tens of billions of dollars, about $30 billion. Contrast this with the Democrats' proposal. Now, what is their proposal? The Democrats' subsidy proposal would only lower premiums for a small subset of people. Now, think of this. Just 7% of Americans would benefit. When they passed the COVID-era enhanced subsidy, enhanced premium tax credit, okay, it would only affect, and only did affect, 7% of the American people. If it was extended today, if their gambit was done and without any reforms, and they expanded it for 3 years, which is what they tried to do in the Senate, and they failed last week, and what they would try to do in the House, if allowed, that would only reduce, for the 7% of Americans, it would only reduce their cost by 5.7%. Okay, this is not some solution to the problem. It's just adding more money. It's further subsidizing a broken system, and the subsidies go to insurance companies. They're not trying to solve the cost problem. They're trying to hide that, and it's not the way to fix it. It would also, by the way, cost taxpayers, if the subsidy was extended, would cost American taxpayers $350 billion over the next 10 years. Again, the proposal doesn't lower health care costs in any way. It only hides true cost of the failed law. And I'll remind you, CSR payments are not a new idea. In fact, in 2017, the thing that we're going to put on the floor tomorrow, a big part of that, 196 House Democrats, many of them still in Congress, wrote a letter in support of that very idea. Exactly what the Republican bill this week will accomplish. Now, they won't tell you that this week. I'm certain they're all going to vote against it. Why? As was said here many times this morning, they do not want a solution. Democrats do not want a solution. They want an issue in the upcoming election. And they think that the media will go along with this and that people will buy it. That, oh, their heroic effort to extend this COVID-era subsidy that they themselves created and that they themselves put the expiration date on at the end of this year, they're going to try to convince you that that's all health care wrapped into that. Remember, it only affects 7% of Americans, and it would only reduce their cost by less than 6%. Democrats also had a chance to support our provision in the working families tax cut in the big, beautiful bill. But House Democrats voted against it, and the Senate Democrats stripped it out. That cost-sharing reduction reduced everybody's premiums by almost 12%, and the Democrats fought to take it out. This is something that we're going to do this week. The Lower Health Care Premiums for All Americans Act is going to accomplish exactly what the title says. If it becomes law, premiums will decrease, access will increase, and every American will have more options and flexibility to choose the coverage that works best for them. It's called the free market, and we're the ones that advance those ideas. More options and lower costs. That's what the American people demand and deserve, and it is only the Republican Party that is presenting any ideas to do that. The Democrats want to keep subsidizing a broken system. We're fighting for that, and we will. I'll just close with this. 2025, as I said, was a marquee year, a landmark year. I want to remind you all there's something noticeably absent from our end-of-year duties here. Normally, or at least in the past before I became Speaker, we would all be here with so much angst and drama and everything about the dreaded end-of-year Christmas omnibus spending package. You have not been able to write about that for now the third year because we broke the fever. We both broke the Christmas omnibus fever, and we're getting back to stewardship and regular order, and we're very proud of that. The third consecutive year.
Are we though? Are we really? We're going to
Christmas
unpack
tradition,
some of this one here.
and we're getting everything working here again. Fixing the appropriations process has been a goal for me and this leadership team. It's been a goal for Chairman Cole at Appropriations and his leadership team, and we're well on the way to rebuilding that muscle memory. House Republicans have shown up every day and delivered real results for the American people, and we're going to continue to do so. We are excited about the years ahead. We look back now on what we've done all this year. We obviously passed the Working Families Tax Cut, the big, beautiful bill, the most significant piece of legislation that Congress has considered in my lifetime. Stephen Miller's had a quote that summarized it pretty well. He said, quote, "Each and every one of the individual titles in that bill will be considered one of the greatest achievements in the history of the conservative movement." They are conservative policies, but they benefit every American, and everyone will be seeing and feeling the effects of that in the first and second quarter of next year when all that becomes implemented. Here's, by way of reminder, real quick, the legislation included the largest tax cut in American history, permanent extension of the reduced state tax, Medicaid program reforms, expansion of SNAP work requirements, increased border enforcement and funding, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, increased standard deduction for seniors, tax-free savings accounts for every child born in America, business tax provisions to incentivize investment and innovation and broaden the pathway out of poverty for more people. Wages will be increasing and costs will be going down. Many of these landmark provisions are set for implementation in the first, second quarter, as I said, and all boats will begin to rise. Just last week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent predicted 100 to 150 billion in new tax refunds, between 1,000 and 2,000 per household. And most of the estimates say that the average American household will have their take-home pay increase by at least $10,000. these are real, tangible benefits that this bill is going to offer to tens of millions of American families, and we're excited about what's ahead. It's just one more example of the many positive and transformational outcomes that we're going to see going into the next year. So far, House Republicans have passed 413 bills this year. We've codified 60 America First executive orders. We've repealed 23 Biden-era maddening regulations under the Congressional Review Act resolutions. We clawed back billions in wasteful spending through rescissions and opened numerous investigations into President Biden's failed administration. And we look forward to continuing all of that work when we return in 2026 and we go into an epic midterm election cycle. With that, I'll take a few questions. I'm going to go to Bill Malugin. What you doing on the front row, man? Glad to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ahead of Jack Smith's deposition tomorrow, there's a new report out this morning that DOJ is getting ready to hand over Congress a batch of emails, specifically to the House Judiciary Committee. And in those emails, they allege it says that the FBI warned the Biden DOJ that there wasn't probable cause to raid Mar-a-Lago. Are you aware of this? Are you expecting to get these emails later today? What's your response?
I've heard as much as you just reported there, and I have not had an opportunity to review any of that yet. But it would verify and I think affirm much of what we understood from the very beginning. As y'all know, I used to serve on the House Judiciary Committee before I was made Speaker in October of 23. And we spent a lot of time uncovering just the complete and total weaponization of the Department of Justice under the Biden administration. They used it to go after political enemies, and chief among them was, of course, Donald J. Trump. And they abused the system, and to me, the great harm of it all was that they really eroded the people's faith in our system of justice itself. I mean, that's the most dangerous thing. If people don't believe that our justice system is actually equal justice under the law, that Lady Justice is actually still wearing the blindfold, that everybody gets the same treatment under the law, it's a really serious challenge for a constitutional republic. And so this is some shocking revelations to a lot of people. It's not to us. We understood that this was happening the whole time. The evidence, I think, and I expect will verify all of that. And there's going to have to be appropriate accountability. I mean, accountability is key here. It's important because if you're going to restore the people's faith in the justice system, you have to show them that there are serious consequences for people like Jack Smith who abuses that system. We have to ensure it doesn't happen again, and we'll see how all that unfolds, but it's going to be a very, very interesting, important development. Yes, ma'am, second row. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. This morning, Congressman Mike Lawler said that it was political malpractice to not allow a vote on the ACA subsidy extension this week. What's your reaction to that, and will Republicans suffer any political blowback for not allowing something like that to come to the moderates?
Well, Mike Lawler is a very dear friend and a close colleague of mine. Weekend before last, I was in New York in his district on Long Island, and we were campaigning together, ensuring that he gets reelected. Mike Lawler fights hard for New York, as every Republican in this conference does for their districts. The districts are different; they have different priorities and ideas. But
we're going to go
about
step
a
away
dozen
from this.
members in the conference that are in these swing districts who are fighting hard to
and
make
he's
sure
covered
that
the
they
important
reduce
stuff.
costs.
So we're going to step away
for
from this
all of their
now.
constituents.
Not taking a break.
Many of
We
them
got a
did
late
want to
start. I
vote
feel like I got to
on
make up
this
some time for you guys.
Obamacare,
Especially 'cause,
COVID era
I've
subsidy that
barely
Democrats
been-
created. We looked
It's not
for a
my
way to
fault,
try.
though. All right. So I just realized I put that on the wrong screen. So we're just going to do that. All right. So you just heard the Republican press conference kind of doing the end of year wrap up. So let's back up a bit. I like the fact that when I could finally make it start playing, they were talking about some of the very things that I've been talking about here. Insurance portability across state lines, cause competition. The one thing that I didn't hear them say, and I might have missed it, so I apologize if I did, was that's one of the quickest ways that we're going to fix our medical situation is if insurance companies actually have to start competing with one another instead of being, chosen as winners and losers by our federal government, which when the Democrats were talking about extending these ACA tax credits that were passed during COVID, which, by the way, they passed along party lines, and they voted to sunset them, not Republicans. So now the Republicans are getting blamed for the fact that the Democrats knew that they wouldn't even be able to get their own people to vote for them unless they had a sunset. Because remember, either almost no Republicans or no Republicans voted for that thing. So the sunset clause didn't help bring any Republicans on board. So that was their own party saying, we can't do this forever, and we know it. But I want to back up for a second. And I know I've been talking about this for a little bit because it started coming up during the shutdown, but I feel like this is really important. One, first is this. We told you guys, what, 15, 16 years ago that the Affordable Care Act was going to be unaffordable and unsustainable. We told you. We told you over and over and over again. And so many of you were so used to being conditioned to, well, what the government tells us has to be true, when in reality, they've lied to you over and over and over again. But this is bringing a couple of different things to fruition because, one, remember, the ACA was and is the framework. If you're building a house, the first thing you got to do is the framework. The ACA is the framework of the house that socialism built. That was the plan, to stress the system, to implode the system, and have the government actually have to come in and fix it. It wasn't working fast enough as far as the Democrats were concerned, so they started importing people to further break our systems. You have all of these things that are being funded by your tax money and my tax money, like our public school system. A lot of our hospitals get funded through tax money anymore, etc. So they started importing people to overload those systems, and they still weren't overloading fast enough for them. So what else did they start doing? They started giving them your money and my money so they could start fomenting dissent, and you've seen it work. So on top of all of this, you now have American citizens watching illegal aliens come in. Exactly. well mentioned, BZ, because I was actually about to bring that up. We're watching the Cloward Piven strategy playbook unfolding right in front of us, and it has been since, I mean, honestly, well before Obama took office, but he was such a racist asshole and such an anti-American asshole, and I said what I said, that he accelerated it. And that's the thing that a lot of people on the left are still unwilling or unable to see. And I talked about this in Sean's chat last night because he was discussing with his guest, how do we bring people back together again? I honestly don't know if we can anymore. And it's not because I don't want to see it happen. It's because we are now living in a world where two people of opposing ideologies can see the same thing happening at the same time in real time and have two completely different real world reactions to the very same thing. That's like one of the things that I thought we learned after the World Trade Center incidents was, Muslims bad. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but let me tell you this. Everybody talks about how did I heard it put a specific way in an Australian press conference today, and I'm trying to remember. Unfortunately, since I've been sick as long as I have been, my memory has not been what it once was, and I'm hoping it returns. I don't know. I am getting older, so eventually it's just going to be like, yeah, we're done. So we'll see. But no. So I guess one way to put it is the outlier, as far as Islam and the Muslims are concerned, are the peaceful ones. I know that the entire world tries to tell you, well, out of the entire Muslim population, only 1.5 million of them are actually radicalized. Really? How can you prove that? Because the difference between Christianity and Islam, when people that are preaching Christianity get out of line, Christians take care of our own. When's the last time, and I know I bring them up all the time, but when is the last time you heard anything about the Westboro Baptist crowd? The world was using them as an example to paint every Christian with the broadest brush. But see, we told you they hate everybody. No, we took care of them. You don't hear about them anymore because we took care of them. If there really are so many more good, peaceful Muslims than there are these supposed, Islamic extremists that are supposed to be the exception, not the rule, then why aren't they taking care of them? Why do these 10 million peaceful Muslims not rise up and take care of the 1.5 million that are not? Because Islam is not a religion of peace. Then, if you needed any further proof that Islam is not a religion of peace, all you have to do is Google what Islam means. They put it in the title, and we are still trying to convince ourselves that these people are good people. They put it in the title. Submission. That is not peace. That is you do this or else. And we still keep trying to paint with these. Well, you don't understand these people, Rick. They really are. No, they're not. And I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I know people that practice Islam, and I've said this to their face. I don't understand it. Your religion preaches all kinds of things that you should be diametrically opposed to. Well, that's not how it is today. Really? Look at where your religion is widely practiced as the dominant religion in a region, and you tell me it's what is told in the Quran from centuries ago isn't exactly how your religion is taught and preached today. And you know what happens when they do that? They leave me alone. They turn around, they shut up, they either get mad at me and they start yelling at me, or they turn around and they walk off because they have nothing else they can say. Nothing. Look, I am not telling anybody how they should worship, who they should worship, or whatever the case may be. That's not what I do on this show. But I am saying this. We have to start looking at this stuff through the prism of reality, not the prism of how we want things to be. And this goes back to everything that I've been talking about on this show for the last 16. Well, this one hasn't been around for 16 years. What, about 12 years now? Roughly. But seriously, look, let's be honest for just a minute here. The Democrats hate America. Not all of them, but their leadership certainly does. And they prove it to you over and over and over again. A lot. And again, at this point, if you are watching everything the Democrats are doing and you are okay with it and you're cheering it, or you're sitting idly by while it happens and go, well, I don't know what else to do, then you have officially become part of the problem. So I'm lumping you in with the same people that I'm talking about with the Islamists. If you are supposedly a good, patriotic Democrat, then you need to be doing something about your party, because they are destroying us they were trying to destroy us from the inside out, and that didn't work. So they threw open the floodgates and started letting everybody come in. And then when we said, no, we can't do that, then we're racist or we're some sort of phobic or something. And the funny thing is, because I had been sick so much and working from my laptop and working on, book ideas and everything else, I've been watching a lot more TV than I normally do. But I don't really like new TV. I mean, there's a few shows that I watch. So, just for fun, the other day, I turned on Sliders, the old sci-fi show about parallel universes. One of those episodes really struck me because I think it's part of the reason why Democrats are so terrified of Trump's, Make America Great Again movement, because there was an episode where they had slid into a dimension where there was a governor of California who was going to be running for president, and his entire campaign was America for Americans. But the difference is, during this show and during the full unfolding of the show, and if you haven't seen it by now, I'm not considering it spoilers because this show's, only 20 years younger than I am, and I'm old. So I will say this, it turned into, they started doing racial purity tests, and it didn't matter if they were American citizens or not. If they weren't, of the makeup of what this particular group considered to be Americans, some of them were deported and the rest of them were turned into slave labor. But I think that's where the Democrats get a lot of their angst from. Because you have to remember, this was written in California, this was written in Hollywood in the 90s, when everything was still below the surface, but they were still telling you exactly what they thought. So this is what they're afraid would happen, because they know that's what they would do. The difference between that and what Trump has been talking about is we're not trying to get rid of American citizens. Nobody is. If you've come to even if you are an immigrant who came here legally and you're following the process, you are more than welcome here. The difference is we put the standards in place that we have for immigration and the policies that we have for a reason, because we saw what happened when our ancestors came into this land. And there was nobody to tell us, hey, this is our country, you can't be here, or anything like that. So we just started making our mark on the place. But again, this was something that I was going to go into really in depth on the week before Thanksgiving, if my entire world hadn't tried to blow up on me yet again. which is a recurring theme lately. I don't really know how I feel about that, but that's a discussion for another day. Was the fact that so much of what we've been told about our history isn't true. And the simple fact of the matter is, it was actually the natives who declared war on the settlers. Nobody will tell you that part. You can go look for it. You can find it. It's there, I promise. The chiefs at the time, the tribal chiefs, because that's what they were. They were distinct tribes, and they had their own leadership, and they had their own ideas about how everything was supposed to be done. A lot of the tribal chieftains started talking to one another behind the scenes because they realized that this new, the white people were bringing this new religion onto the continent, and it was preaching peace and enlightenment and trust and loving one another. And they couldn't have that because they liked being able to, gin up their people into going to war with another tribe. And, these people are bad. We should take care of them, or we need their resources. So let's go get them. And being able to, enslave the men and rape the women, they loved being able to do that. So they were the ones that escalated things. Well, it wasn't our side. Now, I'm not saying that we were perfect, but again, I'm sorry, and maybe this makes me an asshole, but in my opinion, if I don't start the fight and you start it with me, once you've started it with me, my job is to end the fight by any means necessary. And I don't know about you, but I had one of those dads growing up. I better not ever find out that you've started a fight, but if somebody starts one with you and you don't end it, I'm going to kick your ass. And that was just how it was. And that's how it should be. So the same thing that we're dealing with right now, and for those of you who are new to the show, I'm really good at 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So what we're dealing with right now is just like in our previous history, we now have a group of people that are diametrically opposed to everything this country stands for, and they want it torn down. And they have done everything they can since beginning in the 90s all the way through today to first try to tear it down from the inside. Then that didn't work. So they started trying to overload the system. So that didn't work. So then when they couldn't do that, they imported people to continue to overload the system. Now, on top of everything else, you've got people that are diametrically opposed to even trusting our government on both sides because of everything that each side has done to basically walk hand in hand with one another and say, well, and that's my problem with all of this is just this. When it comes right down to it, the establishment of the Democratic Party, well, I guess not really the establishment anymore for the Democratic Party, but the establishment for the right and the rabid leftist weirdos, they want the same shit. The only difference is one of them wants to get you there as quickly as possible, hoping you don't notice, and the other wants to get you there as slowly as possible using the frog in a pot metaphor, hoping that by the time they get you there, you'll have been so relaxed that you don't realize you've been being cooked from the inside out. And that's just the truth of it. And we're still watching all of this today. Half of what we've been talking about for months, even though I haven't been here, I've still been keeping up with everybody else's shows and everything else. Half of what we've been talking about for months is the fact that these people are trying to destroy us. These people being the left. And you guys are about to find out for real how bad socialism is, especially if you live in New York City. And sorry, not sorry, because I've been saying this for a long time, and this goes for both sides. If there's something happening in the area that you live in that you are diametrically opposed to and you don't do something to change it, especially when it's something as peaceful as going to a ballot box, that's on you. That's not on anybody else. That is on you. 1,000% on you. So I'm sorry. I am of the mind at this point that people need to start getting what they voted for. So everybody who's pissed off at Trump for what he said yesterday, you're getting what you voted for. You knew who he was. You knew who we made him. Everybody forgets that the first couple of times that man, who was then still kind of sort of a boy, especially from my perspective now at age 52, was on TV, because he was very early on TV. And he would I think it was Leno. It was Leno or one of the other talk shows. And he would just sit there staring at his feet until he got asked a question. And then he would look at them, answer the question, and go back to staring at his feet again. Trump used to be a very meek person. He was shy. He really was. If you go back and you look at his older tapes, his very first few tapes, he was a very shy, quiet person. He is now what we made him into because he started testing out ways to not come across as so shy on camera. And people responded to him. The more outlandish he was, the louder he was, the more boorish that he was, people responded to it and they started noticing him. So he is now at 70 some odd years old. What is he, like 78, 79 now? At that age, he is who we made him to be. And if you have anybody in your life that is that age and you expect them to change, then you're retarded. He's almost 80 years. He doesn't even care anymore. But the simple fact of the matter is, most of the people that voted for him for the very reasons that I couldn't vote for him in 2016. Because he told everybody exactly what he was thinking. And sometimes that shit terrified me. Not even going to try to tell you that it didn't. It absolutely terrified me. I've talked about this before. My first appearance at CPAC when we were running on Radio Row and doing all the cool things that I'd never gotten to do before. First was SRLC in 2015, and the next was CPAC in 16. In CPAC in 16, I'm sitting in one of the ballrooms. They've got everybody crammed into the ballroom. They've got giant TV, and they're doing I think it was one of the debates. And Trump standing on the stage saying, the military will do what I tell them to do because I'm the commander in chief. And in that moment, all I heard was Mojo Jojo. You will do these things that I have told you to do because I have told you to do them because I am Mojo Jojo. Mwahaha. Because he went on to say, even if I tell them to go around and start kicking in doors, they're going to have to do it because I'm the commander in chief. And I will be honest with you, that terrified me. Then later, he's like, with the way my voters and the people that are going to vote for me are, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they wouldn't care. Yeah, I didn't know how I felt about that either. But it occurred to me much after the fact, after talking to friends from New Jersey and New York and all of those upper East Coast areas where they're loud and they have to be to get attention and blah, 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 because you got millions of people stacked on top of each other. So again, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that's exactly what he was doing. And everybody that's from that region was like, you don't get it. He doesn't mean half of what he's telling you, at least not in that context. He's just telling you what he thinks. So yeah, I didn't vote for him in 16. I voted for him in 20. And I voted for him again in 24, but I didn't vote for him in 16. Because I couldn't, because I didn't understand enough. But the thing about it was, in between 17 and 21, he showed me who he was. Yes, he's still brash. Yes, he says things that a lot of people are, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. The commander-in-chief of the leader of the free world, the leader of the most powerful country in the world shouldn't say things like that. Really, who says? You say? Because the funny thing about that is this. A lot of the people that are saying he shouldn't say things like that get paid to say things like that about the other side. I'm one of them. I wrote article after article after article when I first started working for Twitchy, trashing Rob Reiner every way possible. I'm still able to say I hope he and his wife find peace. Because I don't know. But it's not like my hands are clean. So all these people that are like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. You've said worse, and you know it. This is part of what drives me crazy. It happens everywhere anymore. I am so tired of people living in glass houses throwing stones. Because if I get paid to trash talk somebody, and I do all the time, I get paid, I trash talk everybody all the time on this. I get paid to do this. I trash talk people when I'm writing. I get paid to do that. That means that I don't have the right to yell and scream at somebody on my side who does the same thing, in my opinion. Would I do it in that setting? No. But I'm not him. And I'm also not somebody who's had his life threatened multiple times. Because that's just it. We only talk about the near miss and the almost. We don't talk about the other 3 or 4 times this stuff has happened. This isn't a new thing. We don't talk about the fact that Rob Reiner spent most of the last few years talking about how terrible Trump was, how he was a Russian plant, and all these different things. And you expect Donald Trump, the man who told you who he was before you voted for him, for a lot of you who did, to moderate himself just because now he's in a position of authority? So my question is this. Would you rather him continue to be consistent and show you who he is over and over and over again? Or would you rather he lie to you? Because if he had been publicly polite about Rob Reiner, it would have been a lie. It would have been a lie. I would much rather have somebody show me who they are and be consistent than to moderate with me how they discuss things based on a certain circumstance. Which is why I put out both sides of it yesterday, because that's what I do. I said, look, for me, yes, I have said a lot of negative things about Rob Reiner. I can still hope that his wife and himself find peace in whatever, afterlife they are in now, because I do believe there is life after this one. But I also said at the same time, I cannot condemn, even if I don't condone what Trump said, because I'm not living in Trump's shoes. I didn't go through everything that man has gone through. I didn't have prominent Hollywood people basically ginning up politicians to come after me, including one of the things that was just talked about. Then we're going to have to take a break because I just realized because of the technical issue start, I'm well over the top of the hour. But I just like everything that they were just talking about. Our government is being weaponized against us. Our law enforcement agencies have been weaponized against us. We now have all of this information coming out about the DC police chief and all the things that happened there to make the numbers look better. If you think that was only happening in DC, you're not paying attention. But when everybody is lying to you and telling you what you want to hear, would you rather have a president who does that or a president who says, hey, I'm sorry he died. A really bad thing just happened, but that dude was an asshole. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. All right, so we need to go ahead and take a break because I just realized I am well past where I should be for now, but also got thrown off because of the technical issues. Also, just a reminder, the video that I'm about to play, the audio version of this track becomes available for purchase sometime around December 30th, December 31st. Again, it was supposed to be today, but my sick, addled brain self forgot to click a final button, and then that spot was taken away from me because I waited too long. So now it's coming out in a couple more weeks. Also, don't forget to Friday in He Said, She Said time slot, we are doing KLR Radio Players Present our winter production, which this year is The Wizard of Oz. So make sure you guys join us for that. My name's Rick Robinson. This is my show. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Listening.
But the lights dancing in the city, say the system's on the ropes. While the same hands that broke it hold your paycheck in your hopes. They'll sell your sweat for silver, call your sacrifice relief. But every drop of truth we bleed writes another line of belief. Freedom isn't free, it's carved in blood and fire and stone. The prices stand tall when they tell you to kneel and go home. They can lock up every promise, tax the air we breathe, but they'll never chain the hearts of those who still believe. 'Cause freedom isn't free. They preach peace from marble towers while they fence off your front yard. They wave a flag made out of rules and call obedience smart. They'll brand your voice as danger, they'll mock your faith as greed. But freedom don't need permission, it just needs men who bleed. Freedom isn't free, it's carved in blood and fire and stone. It's the price of standing tall when they tell you kneel and go home. They can lock up every promise, tax the air we breathe, but they'll never change the hearts of those who still believe. 'Cause freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free, it's written in red on history's page. A warning to the tyrants and the cowards of the age. They can bury us in silence, but the truth still screams. Freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. He's breaking down the noise, cutting through the lies.
And welcome back into the Tuesday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. Man, I'm glad to be back doing this stuff. I realized how much I missed it on Friday, and then I overdid it a lot this weekend. So I'll be honest, I almost pulled the plug today too. And then when I had technical issues for the first 10 minutes, I was like, ugh. But you know what? We're gonna start powering back through it again, because if I don't dive back in now, I may never. So anyway, we're back. We're live, and I know I'm doing a lot of nasally stuff today. Still having some congestion. It's just not bad enough where I feel like I'm dying anymore. So there's that. All right, so we're back. We're live. Also, don't forget, come back tonight. We do have first, I believe, the Cocktail Lounge will be live again. I don't remember if it was last week or not. I know Aggie was doing family stuff, so I don't know what they did last week, but I know they're back tonight. And then Manorama will be live tonight for the Christmas Hangout episode for the panel. So I'll be there being producer monkey and contributing where I can. That kicks off at 10 p.m. Eastern. And if that's not your cup of tea, make sure you're hanging out over with our SHR media friends. I know some of you are like me. You eat, sleep, and breathe politics. It's kind of why I started doing other stuff, because I realized it was starting to drive me nuts, especially after I unplugged for almost 6 weeks. I was like, oh, it's so hard. Dude, I'm going to be honest. One of the reasons why it's been so long since I've done this consistently, it has been really hard to plug back in, because when I was doing it every day, I don't think I realized how broken everything really was. And then when my brother died, I was already planning on taking a week off in November anyway, but then it wound up being taking off most of November completely and then working on other stuff, just as kind of a release valve. But then trying to plug back in, especially, watching everything after the shutdown ended and everybody's, oh, look, now we're not getting jobs numbers and we're not getting it. Must be really, really bad. Look, look, can it be any worse than what we went through for the last 4 years? Can I just be honest with it? Even if the numbers aren't great right now, because they're not, the numbers are starting to come out. But the thing that you need to understand about those numbers is they're all really old now. We're talking about, mid-December finally being able to find some of the numbers for November. But the thing about it is the guts of the numbers are strong, and nobody wants to talk about that part. Yeah, it looks bad on paper when the government loses over 200,000 jobs since January 1st, but it's good for me and you because that's less things that we're having to pay for. But it's another reason why the unemployment rate's higher than everybody wants it to be, and it's another reason why the jobs market's numbers keep looking soft, because the government for the longest time has been using government job growth to give you the illusion that we live in a strong jobs market when we don't. And we haven't for a long time, but there's a reason we haven't. It's the choices that have been being made in this country since the 70s that have pushed us to the point where we've had to find ways to prop up our jobs numbers. Reagan actually started the process to try to reverse it a little bit in the 80s. And that was one of the reasons why, after people were out of the job market for a while, their numbers just kind of fell off, because the assumption was a lot of folks that weren't in the active labor participation market anymore had gone off and started their own thing. But that's the other stuff that nobody's talking about. The very same things that you just heard the Speaker of the House talking about, which is the stuff that's coming out from the tax bill that they just passed, the one big beautiful bill, which, trust me, I was not a fan of. I'm going to say it again. I want to get back to a point where we are doing one item legislation, a few pages written out and put out in advance so the American people can read it and hopefully understand it, and then decide whether it's something that they want or not. And again, even for the one big beautiful bill, in the grand scheme of things, it was a small bill. It really was. Compared to what they normally try to do, it really was. But, in this hour, I want to talk about the other thing that Speaker Johnson talked about today, which is how they're trying to get back to the nuts and bolts of how the government's supposed to run and how they plan on, starting to do the appropriations process. And I'm going to say this again. Are they really going to do it? They're going to try. Are the Democrats going to let them? I doubt it. It's kind of like everything else that we're finding. Again, going back to the ACA, one of the quickest ways to fix our medical system would be upfront pricing. If hospitals had to tell you up front what their procedures were going to cost and why they were going to cost that much, if doctors' offices actually had pricing for all the different things that you're there to see them about, you could then decide, is it worth paying the extra few dollars to get this particular doctor's touch, or do I want to look elsewhere? But because the American public and the American people have been so far removed from the pricing of our healthcare costs because of the insurance providers, we don't care anymore. So what's happening? You've got, again, he talked about this during the press conference. You've got the Democrats wanting to relieve pressure for 7-8% of the American population and put that pressure on the rest of us. How many more things can they put on our backs? That's my question. Before the back breaks, because we're dangerously close, how much more can they put on it? I'm just being honest. We're going to reach the straw point. You know, for those of you that don't remember the parable I'm talking, the straw that broke the camel's back, we're pretty much there, which is why we have half the country hating the other half consistently. And the rest of us, I mean, we don't really hate them. For the longest time, I just wanted to get along with them. But now I don't believe we can coexist anymore. And I've been saying this now for months. I don't see a way to do it. I'm not trying to backtrack, but I'm going to say this again. I don't see a way to do it when we can be watching the same things happen live. And depending on your perspective and your beliefs, you have two completely different takes on what's happened. And then we have the problem on both sides where we want our politicians to lie to us. Trump shouldn't have said what he said yesterday. You know what? That's not my place to say. I wouldn't have said it, but I'm not Donald Trump. And again, if he had said anything differently than he did yesterday, the left still would have hated him. I know some of the right's pissed off at him today. You know what? That's your prerogative. You are allowed to think what you want to think. I'm not telling you what to think, but I am trying to make you think about something. Do you want people who consistently tell you what you want to hear, which is what we've had going on for forever? I just talked about it. Our government has been using government job growth to fool you into believing that we had a strong economy, when in reality we don't. And we haven't for a long time. It has become a perpetual system. Taxes get increased. That tax money is used to fund more government positions, giving the illusion that there are more jobs being created than there actually are. But you know, the bright spot for these job reports, even though a lot of them are, well, look at how low these numbers are. But every single one of these jobs that is being created, for the most part, is a private sector job, meaning it is not moving money from one hand to the other just to give you the illusion that you've done something. It's actual job creation, which is going to spur our economy on. We have so many decisions that we need to make. One is, how long are we going to let Western civilization be overrun by Islam? Two is, how long are we going to let Democrats wring their hands about us going to war with pirates when we've been going to war with pirates since the 1800s? There's so many things that have happened over the last month that honestly made me mad enough that I, for a long time, honestly thought about, dude, if I can get these books and stuff to take off, I may just hang up everything else. But I can't do it. And I can't do it for reasons just like this. So this whole thing that happened in Australia, first of all, things like this aren't supposed to happen in Australia because Australia has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. I think only second to Great Britain. So this shouldn't have been able to happen in the first place. But one of the most interesting things when you start, limiting gun access, etc., the other thing that happens is police start getting stupid. So in case you missed it, Sunday there were two Islamic terrorists who were inspired by none other than ISIS that opened fire at a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. So the eyewitnesses on the scene said that police responded by cowering in fear behind vehicles instead of engaging the terrorists. So these same police were very quick to crack down on anyone who didn't comply with Australia's draconian COVID policies and would come down on someone like a house of bricks if they used the wrong pronouns. But actually protecting people from gun-wielding terrorists? Nah, not going to do that. So there was a viral video of one man, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, his parents were kind of original, who snuck up on one of the terrorists and tackled him to the ground before taking his gun. So, see, this is kind of what I'm talking about. I got to give this guy props, because from the name, I'm pretty sure he's a Muslim. And he was trying to take care of his own. I think this is one of the only instances of this I've ever seen. But um, after he was wounded by the terrorists, there was another man who confronted the terrorist on the bridge from where they were firing on the crowd of Jews. For his bravery, he ended up being shot by the police, who refused to actually engage with the, actual terrorists. So here's a quote from the story. A man who rushed in to help disarm one of the terrorists who fired at a crowd celebrating Hanukkah in Australia's famous Bondi Beach was mistakenly, was it really though, shot by police and tackled by bystanders, according to a new report. The heroic civilian, who was only described as a Middle Eastern refugee living with his Australian wife and kids, was in Bondi Beach when Naveed Akram, 24, and his father Saeed, age 50, allegedly opened. Dude, it's on fucking video. Why do we still say allegedly when we see it happen on video? Anyway, allegedly opened fire at a crowd of Jewish revelers. At least 15 people were killed in the attack, but remember, this kind of stuff isn't supposed to happen down under because of gun laws. So there's also a video showing the moment the Samaritan runs up to the bridge where the gunmen were firing from after one of them was hit by police returning fire. So, yeah, just to put this in perspective. So, the guy who's doing what I was just talking about in the opening of the show, trying to police his own and taking care of a problem that everybody doesn't seem to want to take care of when it comes to Islam. So they charge the terrorist, takes his gun, does not shoot the terrorist, he disarms. And so remember, the cops have done nothing up to this point, but then they shoot the guy who disarmed the guy that was shooting. Not a good look for the popo, even if it's Australian popo. So, remember how we said, really lately the left, all of their rhetoric doesn't work. So an interesting thing happens when their rhetoric stops working. They come up with new words. So this is from our friend. This is from Amy Curtis, a contributor to the Weekend News Roundup here on KLRN Radio and also through Digital Weekend U.S. News. From Town Hall, the left is pivoting away from Islamophobia because they've got a new euphemism for people who notice that Islam is kind of violent. So the left, and I'm going to quote from the article here for a second, the left, both in America and globally, has spent the last 25 years bending the knee, both knees. And if you know why I'm saying that, then you know. Not going to elucidate any more than that. To radical Islam in the wake of September 11 terror attacks, many politicians, including George W. Bush, tried to appease Islam and separate the terrorists from the broader ideology. We even engaged in a global war on terror on the grounds of fight them over there, not over here. Only, and here's the fun part, only to start, turn around and start importing Islamists from Afghanistan and elsewhere. Now that it's not working well for Western nations, people are starting to speak up about the problem Islam brings because it's an ideology wholly incompatible with Western values. In Paris, Christmas and New Year's celebrations were canceled thanks to threats. German Christmas markets have been closed, and authorities recently arrested five Islamists who were going to target another Christmas market. And on Sunday, again, Islamists inspired by ISIS opened fire on a Hanukkah celebration in Bondi Beach, Sydney, killing at least 15 and injuring 40 more, including children and Holocaust survivors. So what do you think happened, though? Because when the average citizen dared to speak out about radical Islam, politicians accused them of Islamophobia because these politicians believe racism is a worse offense than shooting Jews or plowing cars into Christmas revelers. But people aren't reacting to accusations of Islamophobia with capitulation and apologies anymore. So they're doing something new. And now they're calling it anti-Muslim hostility. I don't care. Call it whatever you want. So the government is considering a draft definition of anti-Muslim hatred, which does not include the term Islamophobia. The BBC has seen the form of words from the Islamophobia anti-Muslim hatred working group, which the government has taken to stakeholders for consultation. Free speech campaigns have expressed concerns that protections for Islamophobia would mean it would not be possible to criticize the religion itself. Members of the working group argue that the definition protects individuals while avoiding overreach. A working group was established in February to provide the government with a working definition of what anti-Muslim hatred or Islamophobia would actually mean. They submitted their proposal to the government in October. The definition will be non-statutory, meaning it is not set in law or legally binding, but will provide a form of words public bodies can adopt. It provides guidance to the government and other bodies on what constitutes unacceptable treatment of Muslims, aiming to help them better understand and qualify and quantify prejudice and hate crimes against the group. So again, because we always want to blame the guns, not the heart wielding the guns, we have the same problem that we always have. Islam is a religion of peace, you fools. No, not really. Not really. Oh, so we got to talk about this. There has been a lot going on with Candace that I have missed. So let's get caught up a little bit. So look, and I've said this for a while. I get it. Republicans have been long looking for their young crowd, their folks that talk like them, think like them, and say all the right things. But then the problem becomes that because they were so hungry to find them, anyone who ever started saying, conservative or Republican things got strongly and quickly promoted into the national spotlight. One of these was Candace Owens. And I will admit, in the beginning, I was a bit of a fan. But kind of like everything else, eventually the truth comes out about who people are if you let them have their own say long enough, which is another reason why I say over and over and over again, the best disinfectant is sunlight. Stop telling people not to say the things that they actually think. Let them say them, and then you can decide whether you agree with them or not. It's pretty easy, in my opinion. So this is from Stephen Green over at PJ Media. So the long knives have come out for none other than Candace Owens. Anonymous sources, and again, don't like that, but whatever. Anonymous sources at two major conservative outlets did a massive oppo dump on none other than Candace Owens, telling the New York Post all about a sadistic and dangerous personality out to destroy Charlie Kirk's legacy and the organization he built, and her sensationalism in pursuit of audience and self-aggrandizement. She was one of the worst people I've ever worked with, another source told the paper. Someone in the Owens camp called the allegations baseless, but they were funny. There are plenty of juicy details from the Post anonymous sources, for whatever those are worth, but it's the on-the-record stuff that ought to interest you most. And again, at this point, I'm quoting from the article just to make sure that I get it right. The first is the possibility of a huge reckoning in civil court. Brigitte Macron, wife of French President Emmanuel Macron, is such an odd target for Owens' wrath, but the conservative broadcaster produced an 8-part series accusing her of being a man. Who cares? I mean, dude's name is Emmanuel. There's a good chance he started life as a woman. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? My bad. The suit alleges that spreading false information is essentially Owens' business model. Fortune reported earlier this month. Libel is particularly difficult to prove under U.S. law, but the Macrons, I wonder what it's, a little extra letter, they'd be named after a cookie. That just occurred to me. Not sure why that just popped into my head, but here we go. They might have a stronger case than most. Their 220-page lawsuit alleges 22 counts of defamation and a campaign of global humiliation. Your name's Emmanuel. How much more humiliated globally could you be? I'm sorry, that wasn't nice. For financial gain against her. The campaign includes Owens repeating her accusations even after being shown seemingly endless proof that Macron actually has 2 X chromosomes. And here's what a jury might get very interested in: damages, profiting mightily selling Macron-related merchandise. The Post legal expert said that the Macrons can argue Owens was in possession of the facts, but chose to ignore them in pursuit of profit. Now, this is for somebody who does the things that I do and tries to be as straight of a shooter as I can. This goes all through me. Candace Owens made an estimated $10 million last year. Both of her previous employers, the late Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA and the Daily Wire, maintained professional silence after her apparently tumultuous 10 years in court dismissals. To be fair, Owens quit TPUSA voluntarily, although her behavior there indicated it may well have been one of those leave before we fire you situations, probably because it was. Multiple Turning Point chapters called for her dismissal after Owens argued that if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. I guess genocide is fine at home, just don't try to export it. And I quote, "We don't believe Candace Owens to be the most effective representation for Turning Point USA as communications director or otherwise," Turning Point's CU Boulder chapter wrote at the time. Owens quickly landed on her feet at Daily Wire, a move reportedly opposed by co-founder Ben Shapiro, but investors insisted she would be a good fit, according to the Post. See, it's kind of why I like the fact that I just kind of get to do what I do and don't have to deal with investors and everything else yet. She lasted less than 3 years there. Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship. Was about all that CEO Jeremy Boring had to say about her rocky final months at DW. CNN reported last year that since the October 7 Hamas terror attack on Israel, Owens has repeatedly waded into anti-Semitic water. Dude, she didn't wade into them. She dove in head first as she fiercely criticized Israel, including repeating the left's shop-worn accusations of genocide in Gaza. Shapiro called out Owens for disgraceful rhetoric and faux sophistication. DW dumped her a few months later, following more of the same. So, again, I have to admit, other than a few things here and there that she said over the years that I agree with, I've never really paid that much attention to Candace Owens. I still don't really do that now. Despite her unwavering commitment to the most sensational varieties of self-promotion. So here's just the latest debunking of her baseless but quite lucrative, remember, $10 million nonsense, as the Post put it. Israeli Mossad agents, the U.S. military, Egyptian planes, and the French government. So, breaking, 60% of Candace Owens' Egyptian planes locations claims are wrong. That's from Kanekoa the Great. So, in other words, she's not a reliable source. So, if you pull at one thread, which is how you always handle an investigation of any kind, as Kanekoa did, and the whole conspiracy unravels, not that there was any substance to begin with. The paradox here is that the conservative who couldn't hold a job with Charlie Kirk or Jeremy Boring still amassed more than 5 million YouTube subscribers and over 1 billion views. But the whole thing could come tumbling down around her if the Macron's lawsuit succeeds. If that happens, Owens will have no one to blame but herself. That could actually be a rather big if still, however. Predictions are hard, the wise man once said, especially about the future, and even more so about someone as professionally squirrely as none other than Candace Owens. And she is professionally squirrely. Speaking of another professionally squirrely person, somebody else that there's been a lot going on with that I haven't really been able to talk about because of my lack of airtime lately is none other than Tucker Carlson. For everybody who seems to be thinking he's lost his way, I think you forgot where he started and who his parents are. Dude started on what is now known as MS Now, or as I call them, PMS Now. And everybody seems to forget that part. That was back when then MSNBC seemed to be trying to do a little more centrist kind of stuff. And then eventually they figured out that wasn't going to work for them because their audience didn't like it. So they kicked him to the curb. But you got to remember, and I've said this for years. I mean, there's actually archives from times that I filled in on other shows, even on terrestrial, and times when I was doing terrestrial myself for a few years, that I was diametrically opposed to a lot of the things that Tucker Carlson was talking about. Because as a conservative, especially in 17 and 18, I was really big in the whole, in the whole movement about, arresting and jailing people that actually did things that were wrong, not just because we were mad at them. So I was all about criminal justice reform for a long time because I believed that a lot of our system was getting things wrong. And I still, to a point, believe that. But the whole movement got hijacked by a bunch of people who thought we shouldn't have police at all. and think that there should be no consequences, and that doesn't work for life. That's the part, especially with the left, that I never understood, because all we have done since late 80s, early 90s is start teaching kids that there are no consequences. But every part of life has consequences. There are natural consequences to things when you do them wrong. If you are riding your bike too quickly and try to take a turn too fast, you're liable to fall down. When you fall down, there's a good chance that you're going to hurt yourself. Maybe scrape your knee, sprain your ankle, maybe break your leg, depending on how fast you're going. So again, natural consequences. Usually, what happens with those consequences is we learn, hey, maybe next time I shouldn't try to take that turn full tilt while I'm still pedaling. But we don't teach kids about consequences anymore. As a matter of fact, we teach them they don't have to worry about consequences. And if you don't believe me that that's what's happening, just look at what's going on with our country today. I just during my hiatus, I saw a news story about a woman who was yelling at people and trying to sue the city because one of her children was shot while trying to rob someone. And I quote, "He was only trying to rob you. Why did you have to kill him?" You should probably be sterilized. And that's a comment that will likely get me in trouble one of these days if I ever do get big, but I don't care because it's just the truth. All right, so let's see what other trouble we can get into in the last one. We got about 19 minutes. So, Mark Kelly, I guess the Pentagon is escalating the review of serious allegations against that Nimrod. So, a Pentagon spokesperson announced on Monday that the department is escalating a preliminary review into serious allegations of misconduct against none other than Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat, Arizona, following his role in a controversial video reminding troops that they can and I'm sorry, I'm going to add a word here, that they can and should disobey orders from their superiors that they feel are unlawful, a move the Trump administration slams as undermining military discipline. According to the article that I'm reading here from our friends over at Red State, the review reported on by Red State's Becca Lower late last week had been initiated by the Pentagon's Office of General Counsel to determine possible punishments for the retired naval captain. Let me explain something to you, Lucy. If you are alive, you're never officially retired from the military. They can recall you at any time. And I think Captain Kelly's about to find this out. So now Captain Kelly is facing an official command investigation, according to the spokesperson. The Office of the Secretary of War, in conjunction with the Department of War's Office of the General Counsel, is escalating the preliminary review of Captain Mark Kelly, United States Navy retired, to an official command investigation. The Department of War official said in a statement sent to Breitbart News. Retired Captain Kelly is currently under investigation for serious allegations of misconduct. Further official comments will be limited to preserve the integrity of the proceedings. Kelly, a former Navy pilot, is currently the lone member of what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is calling the Seditious Six under investigation. This list includes Democratic Representatives Chris Luzo, PA 17, Chrissy Hulan, PA 6, Maggie Goodner, New Hampshire 2, and Jason Crow, Colorado 6, along with Senator Elise Slotkin, Democrat Michigan, took part in the controversial video that urged military troops and intelligence officers to defy legal orders. The problem is there is a vast difference between manifestly illegal orders and those whose legality is debatable. The latter of which, refusing to obey an order one feels personally questionable, is itself illegal under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Which is what, so everybody's been asking me this question for the last few weeks in private circles, and they're like, how can these people be getting in trouble for telling people to disobey unlawful orders? It's not up to the rank and file to decide what orders are lawful or unlawful. And the simple fact of the matter is nothing that Donald Trump has ordered our military to do is unlawful. Even the stuff that the Democrats are screaming and yelling about going on in the Caribbean is completely being done based on mission parameters and outlines that were already approved. And again, there's nothing illegal about the United States military taking care of pirates. We used to do it all the time before we became, and excuse me, I know I've been trying to work on my language for a while, but I'm just going to say this the way it needs to be said. Before we became hand-wringing pussies, we used to take care of pirates all the time. Yeah, nice. Robot, sorry, I'm getting caught up with the chat based on previous stuff that I was talking about. PZ's in the chat going, robot voice, sterilize. And yeah, in one of his shows, and you should go back and check it out, he actually did go into great detail about Kelly's violations of the UCMJ, and he can and should easily be recalled to service and then court-martialed. Can we still do firing squads after court martials? Is that a thing? Make firing squads great again. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? My bad. All right. So so the mustache is at it again. You know, not that he hasn't been in enough trouble. So John Bolton is currently having some sort of delusional breakdown and is currently suggesting that Ukraine ignore Trump's peace efforts and lower their warfighting age. Okay, so this falls into the category of never meet your heroes. I actually loved John Bolton as a political junkie, and I actually got to meet him in 2015. Our friend, the conservative curmudgeon that everybody knows as G on X, actually negotiated an interview with him while we were at SRLC in 2015. And it was fun. I mean, I'm G's producer, so I got to sit through the whole thing. And, you know, I stayed out of it because producer monkey, not host monkey. But I keep going back to that because since then, dude seems like he lost his mind. And, you know, it started becoming a running joke with me that I do believe that John Bolton is actually an alien from another planet, and the mustache is actually the one running the show. But anyway, so President Trump and his administration have worked tirelessly to end the war in Ukraine. That much is obvious. While the war continues, it's easy for outsiders to poke holes at the overall effort by the administration, but it's clear they want the war to end and the killing to stop. President Trump has met with both world leaders, and Secretary Rubio is consistently working behind the scenes to bring both sides together in order to reach a peace agreement. The detractors and those who have a vendetta against President Trump, which I say are one and the same, are working overtime to subvert his efforts, and in one case, it seems keep the war going. We know that President Trump and former National Security Advisor John Bolton have a storied history. Bolton is known broadly for his betrayal of President Trump and his historical love for the military-industrial complex. He is recognized as someone who starts and prolongs war fighting, not someone who works to put an end to global conflicts. And this time, unfortunately, is no different. During a recent interview with France 24, Bolton suggested that Ukraine and President Volodymyr Zelensky essentially ignore President Trump's peace efforts, stating that Trump is just after the Nobel Peace Prize. And I quote, "I think it's a mistake for Ukraine to make concessions at this point. I don't think Donald Trump is really motivated by U.S. national security interest or the issues for NATO or Ukrainian interest. I think he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's been on his mind since his first term. He knows Barack Obama got one and didn't deserve it, which I think a lot of Americans agree with, but that's not a reason to give Trump a Nobel Prize when he doesn't deserve it either." I would question John Bolton's realization that Trump doesn't deserve a Nobel Peace Prize since he has, in fact, been extinguishing conflicts all over the world. And again, the thing about this is it's a really lazy notion. The fact that Donald Trump is doing everything he can to extinguish conflicts worldwide, and the only reason he's doing it is to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Anyway, so instead of you guys listening to me say it and talk about it, let's play the clip from Bolton. Hang on. That way you guys can hear it in your own words. Or his own words, not your own words. Did I mention I haven't done this in a while? All right, here comes the clip.
I don't think so. I think Ukraine.
Is it not going to work? What did I do? Oh, I know what I did. Hang on. It was my fault again. I mean, I'm my own producer, so normally if something goes wrong, it's pretty much always my fault. Sorry, my mouse is being retarded. I'm trying to get over here. I guess it's not going to let me. So hang on. Now I've had to do this so much. How much you want to bet? I'll have to bring it up on X. Taking bets in 3, 2, 1.
I don't think so. I think Ukraine, as Great Britain during World War II, has a very good argument. You can't have elections in wartime, especially in Ukraine's case when you've got the foreign invader occupying 20% of the country. If you're going to be fair about this, you'd have free and fair elections in Russia, too. We know that's not going to happen. So I think Ukraine needs to do more to show the fight against corruption continues. You can probably have local elections in places where the Russians aren't occupying. And I think this is advice from a friend. I think they need to lower their draft age from 25 to 18 to get more manpower on the battlefield and to make sure that the country as a whole is bearing the burden of this war equally.
So I will say this. I think that's one thing Ukraine has right that we have wrong. And again, this is only because there are so many, and I think this is part of what causes issues with our children. There are so many different things that determine adulthood anymore, especially depending on your, your belief system, etc. So for Jewish folks, age of adulthood used to be 13. For Hispanic folks, it's 15. What is it? Yeah, 15. And then for us, there's the whole sweet 16, 16th birthday is a big deal because you get your driver's license, etc. Then there's you're old enough to vote and join the military at 18, but you still can't drink or smoke. Can't do that till you're 21. Then there's you can be on your parents' health insurance now until your 26th birthday, which pretty much puts you at 25. And with what we know about modern science and the prefrontal cortex, I think we need, especially with as long as everybody lives now, I think we need to make some changes. I mean, the reason that, in Jewish culture, age of majority was 13 back in the day was because the average age was 26 to 30. There weren't very many people that lived past 30 in those times. Same thing with Hispanic cultures. And even here in America, for the longest time, we talk about how, 35 is the age that you have to be a president. That was basically middle-aged back then. I mean, hell, it kind of still is now. The average male lifespan in America is only 77 years old. By the time you're hitting 35 years old, you are practically middle-aged. And you've also reached the point where your body is starting to destroy more cells than it creates. Everybody talks about how from the moment you're born, you start dying. That's not really true. For the longest time, your body is on an overclock. So it's producing cells faster than it destroys them. It helps you grow faster. It helps you build strength, etc. The decline starts at about 25, 26 years old. That's when your body starts slowly destroying more cells than it's able to produce. So again, I think Ukraine has this right. I think another way to fix our society is to have a uniform point where everybody's considered an adult. And it's just that simple. So as far as I'm concerned, people shouldn't be able to join the military. They shouldn't be able to sign contracts. They shouldn't be able to do anything that they may or may not understand and the reason John Bolton wants the age of 18 is the same reason that our government has wanted the age of 18 for a very long time, because they now understand that from 18 to 25, a lot of folks would do things that they wouldn't necessarily do from 25 on, because their prefrontal cortex is starting to kick in and they're starting to understand that life does in fact have consequences. You want to start talking, and this is why parenting is so important. Children don't understand consequences. The part of their brain that helps them understand those things isn't fully formed yet. This is why we have to raise them. This is why we have to teach them. We have abdicated so much of that responsibility, and we're watching all of that unfold with us today. All right, so I want to back up to the chat because I want to talk about so we've got Alan Ray hanging out in the chat. I haven't seen you in the chat for a while, sir, but then again, I haven't been doing a show for a while. So want to first say hello to Al. Hope you're still there. So I do like this comment. Owens tends to struggle with basic human necessities like reality and intelligence. She's one male vitality commercial away from replacing Alex Jones. The funny thing is she's already pretty much replacing Alex Jones without even having that, because now they're both probably about to be sued out of oblivion. Anyway, and again, I don't really know how I feel about the lawsuits, because especially in America, dude, I didn't realize how lawsuit happy we were until, again, because I hadn't been doing my usual stuff. I had more time on my hands. So I was doing doom scrolling a little bit more than I normally do. One of the things that I kept coming across was this 5 lawsuits that you can attach yourself to today that should make you bank without even having to provide proof. Say what now? I swear. We are coming dangerously close to the Ferengi version of capitalism on top of everything else, which I think is one reason why we have so many younger kids that are like, maybe we should try socialism and communism, because we have basically become an oligarchy, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. And again, I don't know how we fix it. I don't even know how we communicate with each other across party lines anymore, because the other side isn't willing to listen at all anymore. And that's a hard realization for me to make as we come to the closing minutes of this show, because the whole reason I started doing this stuff was because I was a firm believer. And back then, there were about 7 issues that were kind of the third rail of everything. Don't touch them. Don't talk about them. Everybody's going to yell and scream no matter what. So my mission was to try to teach people to, hey, set these things aside. Things like abortion and other things that we're never really going to be able to agree on. If we could just put those aside, then about 80% of the country would realize that we have more in common with each other than we do with the people that are teaching us to try to scream and yell at one another. And the hardest realization for me is to come to terms with the fact that I don't necessarily think that's true anymore. Because again, look, it was one thing when it was differing opinions, but it's not. It's not about differing opinions anymore. Pardon me for a moment. For those of you that are watching me on camera, I apologize for nothing. Anyway. All right. It's this. And it's really simple. And I know I've said this a lot this show, but I'm going to say it again. My problem with what we're dealing with right now is it's not about differing opinions anymore. It's about people watching reality unfold in front of them and having 2 completely different takes on what they're watching. And again, I noticed it first with Trump. During the debate, there were a lot of people that were okay with him basically saying as commander-in-chief he could make the military do whatever he wanted to do. I was not okay with that at the time. I'm still not okay with it now. And if he ever really does try to do that, I will probably have a huge problem with it. I can't even really say probably, because I will have a huge problem with it. But what he's doing now isn't that. Because we're now finally starting to understand exactly how broken a lot of local and state governments are. Look at everything that's coming out about Minnesota. Look at everything that's coming out about Washington, D.C. Now you've got Ilhan Omar from years ago basically saying that Congress is going to do whatever the Somalis tell them to do because the Somalis are going to make them. Excuse me? That is something that should have had her immediately disqualified from office, but here we are. All right, so in the final, what we got about, technically, according to my board clock, we got about 90 seconds, so I'm going to go off of that one. Want to remind everybody, again, thanks to my being rather under the weather for a while, I accidentally missed a step when I was submitting the KLR Radio House Band's first release. It was supposed to be out today, however, because I missed a step and I didn't want to pay an extra $40, it's now coming out on December 30th or 31st. Also Friday night, and that is the Freedom Isn't Free. Is the first one. We Ain't Changed was the other one that I've put out recently and been playing on the show. That one will come out probably sometime in January. And then also don't forget Friday night, we also have the KLR Radio Players present The Wizard of Oz. I do believe that is at 8:30 Eastern time. I could be wrong because I've seen some folks putting out 8. So I don't know. Maybe they've decided this one needs to be longer. I don't know. Anyway, either way, we're definitely doing the thing. I still gotta go over the script and everything and figure out what I'm doing because I haven't even looked at it yet because I've been so sick. Also, just to keep everybody apprised, the children's book that I've been working on, the dialogue is done, the story is done, the art is done. Now I just have to start working on putting them together, and then we'll be getting that submitted. I hope to have that released probably mid-January as well, primarily because I want to make sure I get it submitted early enough that I can get my granddaughter one as a keepsake for her birthday, because since she's the star of the book. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one, folks. My name is Rick Robinson. I'll be back tonight on the Manorama panel. And again, for those of you that are political junkies all the time, you can also go hang out at SH Media's channel instead. Don't tell me, though, because then I'll cry. Not really. Not really. All right. Also be back tomorrow for Chat Lives Matter Day right here. Same time, same channel. I'm going to go get Loftus's podcast done so I can mark that off my to-do list. Bye, everybody. Say goodnight, Gracie.